Our mission to quality, high touch as many companies as we can and find a way to bring them value to help really grow their enterprise value. So we're not a consulting firm that does big binders so that management can look good. We really want to work with founders, owners, investors, entrepreneurs, people that are stuck, have a problem, and want to dare themselves to be great. And that's the mission I want to go on. And that's always been my career arc and where I've had some success.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen, to the everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell, from the doctor saving lives at your local hospital, to the war veteran down the street who risked his life for our freedom, to the police officers and the firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling. But there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored: the entrepreneur, the creator, the producer, the ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what, I can fix that. I can help people. I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world. Others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks on the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and today I have live on the line Mike Murphy. Mike, are you there?
I am here.
Awesome. Glad to have you here, Mike. I know we didn't get a chance to talk too much ahead of the interview, but I always start off, where are you calling in from?
Just outside of Washington, D.C., Potomac, Maryland.
Nice, nice. We were visiting some friends up there in just outside of, I think it's Rockwood or something like that. It's right outside of Maryland as well.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Rockville.
got a Rockville. That's it. See,
Yeah.
you know the area better than I do. We just visited.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful place in the country. I got my martial arts instructor actually lives up there, so we
Oh,
do we do virtual training, and he's got his studio up there and right outside of Washington D.C. on the north side.
okay.
So
Yeah, that's kind of where Potomac is. We're kind of northwest, and Rockville's just slightly to the north from here as well. So
yeah, awesome. So I always like to start these interviews off with just a brief introduction of who you are, so our audience knows a little bit of who you are. So I'm going to read your bio real quick that I got from you. And it says Mike Murphy is a distinguished growth leader with over 30 years as a C-level executive specializing in healthcare and insurance. As CEO, COO, and CRO, he excels in transforming businesses, revitalizing growth, crafting innovative strategies. Mike's achievements include propelling a new insurance division from cold start to $435 million in revenue and $22 million in EBITDA in 4 years, now exceeding over $1 billion. Noteworthy is 18% revenue and 40% EBITDA growth within the first year of merging 3 healthcare entities. With your hand-on experience, he's led successful product launches, notably United Healthcare's inaugural national dental product portfolio. You got expertise that spans M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions, due diligence, post-merger integration, turnaround strategies, consistently improving earnings and gross profits. Essentially, you do a lot of work in the growth areas of business. So what I want to find out from you, Mike, is, in your own words, what are you known for, right? What's your business like now? Who do you serve? What do you do for them?
yeah, so I'll start with where I am currently. I am a managing partner founder of an advisory firm called Sunstone Management Advisors. And our legacy goes back 15 to 20 years in various iterations. And for me, it's been 2 to 3 years. And frankly, was born out of a passion that I have. I love building and fixing things,
Yeah.
and I love growing things. And that's always been, I'm not a sit and still type person. I jokingly say that if the role you have for me is a maintenance role, don't give it to me because I'll break it, only make it interesting for myself. Right. So I can't help but tweak, I kind of want to be
Yeah.
moving. And as I came out of my last assignment, where I was pretty successful in some difficult environments, which I kind of proud myself in, talked to a bunch of friends and folks and said, instead of trying to figure out to find the right W 2 scenario and get locked in and work with a single company, let's make our mission to quality, high touch as many companies as we can and find a way to bring them value to help really grow their enterprise value. So we're not a consulting firm that does big binders so that management can look good. We really want to work with founders, owners, investors, entrepreneurs, people that are stuck, have a problem, and want to dare themselves to be great. And that's the mission I want to go on. And that's always been my career arc and where I've had some success. And so I'm looking to bring those skills to bear along with 7 or 8 other great partners to just help companies get discernibly better.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of fun. The good news is you pick who you want to work with, like they pick who they want to work with. and also you pick who you don't want to work with. And so I spent a fair amount of my time, frankly, in non-commercial engagements where people just call to just say, "Hey, I'm looking at something. Can I pick your brain? What do you think?" And I'm happy to do that all day long. Keeps me plugged into some of the cool things that are going on in the space. And the way I look at it is, if I'm doing something that matters and I'm bringing value, the commercial side of this will work itself out. So that's
Yeah, absolutely.
that's my core
Um,
mission.
I love your thought about if your job is maintenance, don't put me there because I'll break it just to make it interesting. Because
Yeah. That's
I
right.
feel that. I feel that deep in my soul. I had to hire and my ops manager is the make sure that all works all the time because I'm definitely the I'm gonna break it all the time kind of person. So you have to have those people on your team. And I wanted to find out from you your consultancy firm that you work with now. Do you work like specific industries or do you work across the board? What's your
Yeah,
target markets that you work with?
yeah. Our target market is, I mean, my background, as you saw, is insurance and healthcare, and that's kind of our core expertise. And because of my experience and my partner's experience, is that we have really deep domain expertise. Now, some of the stuff transcends. I mean, there's some of the fundamentals around strategy, finance, execution, management, culture, that can cut across any industry, and we bring those precepts to bear. But primarily, it's insurance and healthcare, and maybe to put a little, fine tune that a little bit on the insurance side, it's all things life, accident, and health. So we're not really property and casualty or individual lines or international. We're really fundamental life, accident, health, but all sides of it, individual, group, agency, carriers, you name it. There's nothing in the ecosystem we haven't touched. And on the healthcare side, we're not really biotech research forward. That's not our thing. But we work with just about everybody else in the healthcare space: hospitals, insurers, managed care companies, payer, provider services, all of that. So, and again, our operating partners all have deep background in a lot of these areas and expertise. And so that's kind of our core strength. Occasionally somebody will ask us to look at something that's outside of what we do. And, we're happy to do it because the precepts of what fundamentally makes good, sound business operations go
Yeah.
across industry, and things like culture and focus. But our real thing is also the kind of our technical skill. So,
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about running a podcast like this is we get to talk to people in industries all over the world, and you find out that everything from your coffee shop in the Philippines to your venture-backed capital firms in Silicon Valley and everything in between, they run on the same basic principles.
yep. Yes, fundamentals.
Uh,
And that's why I devotee the Harvard Business Review, because even if you're reading a case study about, somebody that's in climate technology that has nothing to do with what you're doing, there are lessons to be learned. And a lot of those fundamental precepts that make the difference between a great leader and a great organization, and they, notwithstanding some of the nuances of industry, but they cut across industry. And so it's fascinating for me.
yeah, absolutely. So let's take a minute and talk about how you got here, right? Your origin story. Every good comic hero has an origin story. It's the thing that made them into the hero they are today, and we want to hear that story. Were you born a
Sure.
hero, or were you bit by a radioactive spider that made you want to get into the
Yeah, no, that's
consulting?
yeah. I got exposed to some nuclear waste, and I either became a hero or an idiot. I don't know, either one of the two. So, I started there is a fundamental guidepost that I follow when I started my career. My father never went to college and got out of the military and was going to be an electrician, was going to trade school, and then took a job loading tapes in the old computer rooms back in the day, and then basically became a computer programmer and stayed 35 years in corporate America. And as I went to go into my first job coming out of college, he said, a little bit of tips for teens. These are the three things that I do that work for me. Number one is out earn your pay. Equal partnership, you always give 51%. That's your pride. That's your edge. That's what will make you valuable. And the great Bill Russell had a corollary to that. His father told him, said, I don't care if you're a ditch digger, you be the greatest ditch digger there ever was. People will come from miles around to watch you dig ditches. And that way you become more valuable to the job than the job is to you. So at any time you can tell your boss to go to hell. And so that was his kind of variation
Yeah,
on the out earn your pay. And then the second thing my father said is, don't spend other people's money. Don't get caught up in the politics or the green-eyed goddess of envy and big corporations. It happens all the time, and you're posturing and preening, and you're focusing on all the wrong things. You're not focusing on the out earning your pay. You're focusing on the politics. Stay away from that. And the third thing he said was, just make sure your boss knows who you are and what you're doing. And if you're doing something that matters, or you're doing something well, and you're with the right organization, everything works itself out. And so that, on top of, I had a career Sherpa early on tell me, hey, don't go the road often traveled. do lots of really different things, especially in your formative years in your career. It's easy to kind of chase the big job and the big money, but more important that you build your portfolio and get good at doing lots of different things. And there's some check a box things you need to do. You need to learn how to grow business. You need to understand sales. You need to learn how to manage a customer service operation or a production environment. You need to understand marketing. You understand how to manage a P&L. And so there's a bunch of things he said you're not going to get if you constantly do the same thing. So do lots of different things. And so I followed, both those precepts. And the first part of my career was, relatively blissful. I was 15 years inside the big company. I consider it my alma mater. But then I woke up one day and realized that number one, that having a bigger job was not going to be having a better job for me spiritually, and that I'm really not a house cat. I'm really not somebody that's going to sit inside. And these big companies, and God bless them, and because there are a lot of fine people there, and I learned a lot. And but I needed to eat what I kill. I needed to move. I needed a bias towards action. I needed to be not process oriented, not I needed to be results oriented, which is always wired. So from there, I started my journey. I went to, took a job in an very entrepreneurial company, and then really learned what it's like to truly. I mean, it wasn't a huge company. We had probably 100 employees or so. It was 13 years bootstrapping, in the making, still a very entrepreneurial kind of startup, if you will. And I was a chief marketing officer, and then I could really feel people relying on investors, owners. I mean, if you're in a big company, you're really kind of part of 50,000, 100,000 people. You make a difference, but it doesn't feel the same. So I did a series of what I would call as intrapreneurial. And frankly, that was just okay. And those are build, fix changes inside the larger to mid-sized companies. And, frankly, a lot of the companies, say they want change, but what they want is a different result, but want to do the same thing over and over again. And so
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't describe that as all that fulfilling. And then really the back part of my career is where I really kind of hit my stride, where I started working smaller, more entrepreneurial companies and walked into some real messes. I'll tell you right now that I'm not Warren Buffett. Don't hire me as a stock picker, because if you hear me saying this is the greatest thing ever, chances are pretty good it's a disaster. You should short the stock, because I had 4 scenarios that I went into, and I thought I was doing my due diligence, where inside of the first 90 days it was, oh my god. And not like, hey, the executive washroom isn't what you promised me. No, it like almost out of business, running out of cash, board up the door, and all that stuff. So it was had some really kind of scary things that I had to deal with as an executive, but overcame all of them, found a way to bring value, and had some pretty good success building companies from scratch, turning around a badly broken small company. So, and I live for that stuff. Not that I don't certainly consider myself a hero, but the drama of feeling like, we just did something impossible and quote unquote heroic is just awesome. It just feels good.
Yeah, yeah. And I love your story too, because you've been sort of all over the place, and, like, your dad's
You
advice
hold
early
it
on. Yeah,
up.
out earning your pay is such a great thing, and it's one of the
Yeah.
things that, like, I've told people a lot, and I was like, "You can't compete with me because I'll work you under a table," kind of thing. Like, it's just like this, you can't compete with people like that. There's no
No.
competition for people who show up every day and will just outwork you.
Well, and I
And
go back to the great Vince Lombardi, and I have 2 quotes that I use all the time, and some of it looking to leverage my history major, right? So the first one is the great Winston Churchill says, when you think about what he went through as a leader, sometimes doing one's best isn't sufficient. Sometimes you must do what is required. And and somebody will go, oh, no, I look at that as empowering, because you're not self-limiting. You're not looking at, kind of what you think can be done. You think about what needs to be done, and you kind of set yourself free. And
and you
the
just do
other,
it.
just do it, right? And then the second thing is Vince Lombardi, said perfection is a goal that can never be attained, but if we pursue it with all our might and will, along the way we will find excellence. And so that balance of desiring to be perfect, right? And being on that journey and understanding that journey, knowing you'll never get there without turning yourself nuts. Like you hear the story of the kid that got straight A's and got to college, got a B plus and blew their brains out. None of that. Somebody that's constantly chasing that. And the other one I love is Marvin Hagler. And I do this when I used to talk to folks, about culture. Used to, and as great as he was, would sit across the ring and look at his competition and says, "That dude wants to take food out of my children's mouth." So he never had a hard time getting up for anybody in competition and stuff like. So to your
Yeah.
point, I'm never going to be outworked. I have a humility about I am not perfect and it can always be better. And I live to kind of make it better. And I get up every day and that's my mission. And along the way, you surround yourself with some great people. Suddenly, lo and behold, you do some miraculous things. And it's awesome.
Yeah, I
You
know.
fail a lot too. You fail a lot, but when you're successful, it's just amazing.
I just relate to your story and the having to learn all the skills, right? I started as an entrepreneur. I didn't spend much time in the corporate world, but you have to learn all sorts of things. And as my company continues to grow, we're realizing that every new level we get to, there's a whole new set of things to learn. And it's almost like becoming a polymath is not an option, right? Like you have to go through and learn enough about every category of what's important in business so you can succeed, so you can actually provide the value you want to provide to the world.
Yeah, I was self-taught on a lot of things. I mean, I just go back to, and I got to validate myself, but we didn't have desktop computers, and there was one for the department, and everything was still paper back in the old days of insurance. And I remember, convincing I'd gone into a management job, and we were all doing manual stick counts of inventory and things like that. I go, "Well, we can automate a lot of this," and so I convinced the boss to buy an IBM AT computer with the floppy disks, and I just came in on a couple of weekends and taught myself Lotus from scratch. And today I can do anything in Excel, right? So
Yeah.
you get that. Well, there's a will to the way of that curiosity, and even right now, to your point, I'm building new muscle memory. I'm doing things that I never, as in this business, that I never had to do, which is organic lead generation, social media content. I never did any of that. I was able, I built sales organizations, did all of that, but I'm still learning, and it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
it's it's exciting.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think sets entrepreneurs apart from, the non-entrepreneur part of our world is that desire to constantly want to learn new things. And it's like I go so far as like I've always got little things in my life that are outside of work even. Like I'm learning to play pool or I'm learning to do windsurfing with my son or whatever it is. I've always got something that I'm like, nope, I've got to just constantly work this learning muscle.
Yep.
Because it's such an edge giver in any space to be the kind of person that can go in and pick up a skill and then leverage that skill in your work.
Yeah, what it comes down to is there's a fearlessness that comes with picking up a new skill because you walk into something and you realize I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and but you have a confidence and a humility that drives you to master that skill or overcome it.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
I say my kids and I, we always talk about anytime you're learning a new skill, we call the first little bit of learning a new skill is the great suckitude, right? That's where that humility comes in, right? That you're like, you have to go through the part where you're not good at it.
Yeah.
Right, and that's where that humility comes in, you're like, "Nope, I'm not gonna be good at this, and it's okay that I'm not good at it." That's part of the process of learning, and so, like, I love being able to show that to my kids by doing it regularly in my own life, but also, like, that's how you get mastery, that's how you get to be good, is by going through and actually learning the skills and going through, like I said, that great suckitude so you can get good at something and then leverage those skills for, you know, to make a bigger impact.
Yeah, and again, that was my career aspiration and mission is that most of the jobs that I went into, I clicked the lights on and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I had enough things to be able to do to be successful day one, but I mean, I took over running a health plan. I had to hire a medical director. I had to build a health services function inside of a health plan. What do I
Yeah.
know about that? And
Well, now you know a
but
whole lot, right?
not a whole lot. But you just you do what you need to do. And again, when that learning is taking place while you're doing it, there's a level of excitement and enthusiasm. It doesn't feel like you're working, right? Because you're learning while you're doing it. You're developing new skills, and that's the same. It's the same thing as a hiring philosophy, right? You can hire the school of been there, done that, or you can hire that young person or the young person or somebody who's looking to set a new skill set but has that kind of runway to get beyond where they are. They'll have the double excitement of learning while they're going in, and flash forward a year into the job, they are far outperforming the school of been there, done that. If they have that attribute, those key
Yeah.
attributes that you're looking for.
That's that's one of those things that, I tell my staff. We're working on building hiring systems right now, and I'm like, the way one of the things we hire for, we don't hire for skill aptitude. We hire for communication and learning aptitude,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, attitude.
Because yeah, because those like your willingness to figure something out, and like we actually design like our test projects for new hirees around that kind of stuff to be able to find the people that are going to figure out how to solve a problem that's intentionally built into the project. And like that's how we like select for that trait in particular because it's more valuable than someone who has the skill.
Yeah, I mean, it's what happens is that folks like that and that, and again, I got there, and it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't. I mean, I had some great managers over the time, and some of them were really hard. And I used to joke that every day was an interview, and it was. And then you were used to that kind of, well, it's not my fault, right? They got my little sphere of control, and I worry about that, and that was in my sphere of control, and that wasn't, therefore wasn't my fault. And I had some leaders just go, that's nonsense. Good people find a way to make things happen. You're limiting yourself. Figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah.
Don't create your own little box that limits your level of authority so you can feel good about your failure. No, just figure it out. And I used to joke at this one boss. I swear, if I came out to be in a meeting and a tree had fallen on my car, you go, "Well, you screwed it up. You parked your car in the wrong place." It's just, so it's. But again, when you get into that, and you start get inside that head. Suddenly, wow, there's nothing you can't do, and then
Yeah.
again, you may not turn it all the way around, and it may not always work, but you're
That's
not don't have that
it's that
anxiety of like, oh, I can't do this. You're like you're trying to make a difference, and you want to own it, and it's what's great.
it's that mental sort of framework you use, or at least I use regularly, that if it's not my fault, I can't fix it. Right? Because if
Yeah,
it's your fault, you have all the power.
yeah.
Right? And that's, if you have the power, then you can make anything happen, right? And like I said, it's a very freeing mentality.
It is, and again, when I've had these scenarios pop up where I walk into a situation, flip open the hood, and go, "Oh my God, we're going on the ground like a dart." It's over, right? And you sit there and said, "All right, well, and I wasn't necessarily CEO in all these situations. Some of them I was like chief marketing officer. I was like outside of, and I just sat there and said, well, I'm just not going to let this happen. How can we do this? And it's not lone wolf McQuaid hero. You're surrounded by people, and you say, okay, because I have to navigate that. I got to convince my bosses to do things. I got to convince colleagues to do things, and I just have this will to say, no, we'll find a way to fix this. And I remember, and years later, I had friends that I had worked with in the big company and come to see me in the smaller company, and they go, "How do you do this?" I mean, I just said, "It's a muscle memory you build over time. You encounter resistance and problems, and you learn that you can overcome it, and then you have the confidence to be able to overcome. Like it's the old Jake LaMotta. I didn't go down, Ray. That doesn't kill me, makes me
Yeah.
stronger. And like, okay, bring the next one on. I'll figure it out. And it becomes a pride of, it becomes a sense of pride. And, but it also, you can build that in your teams. And if your teams have that, well, then your job, you're not worried about shining a clean light on what's going wrong. They're doing that themselves. Your job is to be a cheerleader. No, don't worry about it. It's okay. You're doing great. Let me tell you how to fix it, rather than, having to point out, hey, we've missed earnings now 7 quarters in a row. Do you think we ought to be having a celebration party? Oy. And
Yeah.
that's what you see in some of these larger organizations. So I don't know. When you get
So
to find those people, it's magic. And they don't have to be like you, but if they've got that will to win, that chase of perfection, the humility, curiosity, sense of humor, joy. You want to be around positive people, and you put those people around you, magic takes place.
yeah, it really does. I'm starting to find those people in our company, and it's already making a dramatic impact as we grow. So, and I'm really looking forward to having more leadership in that space. So it's definitely powerful, and it's one of those things that you don't really know as a small company, when you're sub 10 people, right?
Yeah,
Right. We start getting larger. Like we're hiring like our 20th person now, and really starting to see how important the people are, right? And to building that organization and getting the right people in the right places makes a dramatic impact.
yeah, no doubt. And the tough thing too is when you're navigating that, because a lot of times, and it's a prototype where you as you start to move your company along, the folks that were with you sometimes at the start aren't the folks that are with you at the finish, because as you start to move along, the challenges get different. Not everybody makes the jump. I mean, I worked in enough smaller companies where great people, but they were used to kind of the limiting side of a small business that's kind of bumping along. And then when it starts to hit hyperdrive and pace picks up, and some of them struggle with it, and that's always hard, especially for the founders. But it's human nature. Just sometimes the people that you start with and who they are, great folks in their own right, but they're and you do them a disservice if you're not honest with them about what's going next. And so that's always a challenge that I find with smaller companies.
Awesome. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about your superpowers. Right, every
Hmm,
iconic hero has a superpower, whether that's your fancy flying suit made by your genius intellect, or the ability to call down thunder from the sky, or Superman is famous for his super strength. In the real world, heroes have what I call a zone of genius, which is either a skill or a set of skills that you were born with or you developed over the course of your career that really energize all of your other skills.
right.
So the way I like to frame it for my guests is if you look at like all the skills that you developed over the course of your career so far, there's probably some common thread that ties all those skills together where you would find your superpower. So with that framing, what do you think your superpower is?
I would say that my superpower, and it can also be a curse too, as you describe
Okay.
it, is my ability to assess, diagnose, and prescribe a strategic scenario for a company. And I used to say that, I used to go into these situations where, again, it's a lot of word salad there, but I could get under the hood, scratch and sniff, and figure out whether a company has it or doesn't. Again, notwithstanding the fact that I didn't do the due diligence and going into certain jobs, but and sometimes there's the Greek character Cassandra, I think her name was, and she had the gift of sight where she could see
Yeah.
into the future. The downside is that she could see her own death, right? And so that was a little bit of mine where I've gone in situations, got in and just got in, diagnosed, broke the thing down, looked at it through a couple of critical eyes, and say we're going on the ground like a dart. This is going in the wrong direction. No, we're not. Things are great, and no, we're not. And then, of course, in that scenario, is if it's I'm not the CEO, even if I'm just on the executive team, that's where I could see my own death because I could see that it's they're on the river in Egypt called denial. They don't understand what's going on. It's there. It's a combination of things. Some of it is kind of a gut feel, but a lot of it's just kind of fundamentals, which is like all right, tell me your business, your why, and how you bigger, faster, better, cheaper, and then show me how you're flying the plane and why the instruments are telling you that you're not going into the side of a mountain. And again, it sounds simple, but so many companies you listen to their value proposition, the proprietary distinction, or what they think about the competition, and it's wafer thin, and you go, that doesn't sound like an advantage to me. Or you look at what they're doing in terms of their instrumentation and how they're managing the company, that there's obvious problems that they're ignoring. Either they're actually taking a grease pen and going to the fuel gauge and pretending the full is empty or empty is full, or they're not looking at it at all. And so yeah, I think it's my ability to strategically assess a business in relatively short order. Some of it's gut feel, just from years and things that I'm looking for. Some of it is an organized due diligence approach about marketing materials, website, listening to the executives. Does their calendar reflect their mission? And I can sort that out in relatively short order. And then,
Yeah.
off of that, I have the firefighting skills and other things to be able to put the fix in, but to be able to assess the patient, diagnose the patient, and prescribe for the patient probably is the my overarching superpower, I guess.
Yeah, talk for another minute about does their calendar reflect their mission?
Mm,
Because I think that's incredibly important, and I don't want our audience to have missed what you said there.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a battle that I know I've felt, especially if you're, in a smaller company and you're CEO, COO, and you got a lot going on. There's a ton of things that you're doing day in and day out, and I know I would wake up at the end of the week and just say, hmm, did I work on the things that I needed to work on to truly move this business forward strategically, or was I caught up in a bunch of task related, tactical related things that, didn't do the things that I needed to do to truly move, the enterprise value of the company. And so I got into a habit, which people would say you're out of your mind, but I got into a habit of really being disciplined about tracking where I spent my time. And I still do it. Even, like I map out, I sit down, how long is it going to take me to do something? How long did it actually take me to do it? Because one of the things that you do is in your own time management, I notoriously think I can bend the rubber tree plant. It used to show up in my conversation with my wife where I'd be at the office and say, "Oh, I'm wrapping something up. Will be on in a half an hour." 3 hours later, I come in the door. Didn't take you half an hour. It took you 3 hours, right? So, anyway, so you've got to have the tools to be able to go back, and your gut will tell you, am I working on the things that I need to do in my role as a leader to truly move the enterprise value to drive the return for this company and its strategic success. And it's always you get caught up in the tactical. It's your firefighting, but then you say, well, I'll do that next week, or I'll do that the week after. But at some point, then you've gone now 3 months and you've been doing nothing but tactical, and you're now setting yourself up for failure because you need to do the tactical, but you need to find a way to make sure your calendar reflects what your mission is. Go back and look at it. Am I spending the time? Where am I spending my time? Am I, we having too many meetings, not enough meetings? Am I caught up in all this stuff that, that this tactical stuff and clearing emails or whatever it is you're doing, and I'm not carving time to really, work on the business instead of in it. And yeah, and so you can do that with your gut. Some people do with their gut. I'm a little more anal retentive than that. I have a to-do list. It probably takes more time for me to put something on a to-do list than it does to do it. But then at the end of the day, I go back and analyze. I go back and say, and it's not perfect. I say, well, how many times did I say it was going to take 5 minutes and it took an hour? How many
Yeah.
times, and I plan the day, or you sit there and you plan the day. Wait a minute. I just planned the day for 15 hours worth of work. There's no way I'm getting 15 hours worth of work done. So anyway, there's
Yeah,
little,
it's
tools that you
it's
could use to try and do it. But
learning to be
ultimately,
honest with yourself and learning to be
yeah,
honest with what you're actually doing and how the work that you're doing is gonna actually impact where you're going.
yep.
And because it's something that, especially for companies like mine, that we're still young, right? And, the entrepreneur has to wear a lot of hats still. You have to, like, which ones are the things that I need to do that are gonna grow the company? And so, like, for a company like mine, it's like, how are we building the systems and building the ops to get me out of that so I can work on more important things, right? And, I know that's different for every stage of the company, but you have to know what are the things that make the difference and then do those things.
Here's a horrible experiment, but I had a boss who used to do this, and he worked inside. He was very successful. Part of it is that he never touched a piece of paper. We'd joke that he would take the mail stack and break it in half and give it to the two AVPs. I was one of them, and we did all the stuff. And he stayed away from all that, and he did what he wanted to do, which was to manage this gigantic, successful sales organization. But he once said to me, he goes, "I never open my mail." I go, what? He goes, "Yeah, if it's important, they'll send me another one." And so when you think about it, it's like, well, now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. It could be the IRS calling you, but there is something to be said. Well, what if I just don't do it? Ask yourself the tough question. And I know, and I'm an entrepreneur too. We've got a small company, and my role is, really focusing heavily on business development. Well, I love to get into the weeds on client stuff and financial models. I love all that stuff. And my partner's constantly got smacking me around and go, we got people to do that. We need you to focus on this. And so that kind of, is, and there's a little plaque that I used to pass out wherever I went. Actually, it was my original company. And it was a little plaque that says, "Do you know what your customer would say about this?" And there's two questions there. One, do you really understand what your client would think about what you're doing right now? And is what you're doing right now helping you with your client or ultimately your business? So it's a great little reminder to just say, how important is this? Because we can get trapped, and I get in the same thing. I do stuff that might be fun. It's like, oh, I'm solving this little issue here, but I should be spending time over here, which is going to have a much bigger strategic impact. And maybe it's not as much fun as solving this problem, but that's, I need to make sure my calendar reflects my mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about the curse side, right? Your fatal flaw. Every Superman has his kryptonite. Every Wonder Woman can't remove her bracelets of victory without going mad. So you've probably recognized that you have a flaw that's held you back, right?
Mine
Something
one
you
or
struggled
two.
with. Um, for me, I've always struggled with, we talked about it already a little bit, perfectionism and using it the wrong way, right? Like keeping it from letting me ship things, right? Or lack of self-care, which, letting my clients walk all over me, not having good boundaries, things like that. Or, being a visionary and lacking the discipline to actually implement and realizing I need to hire an implementer and bring them in. But
Right.
I think more important than the flaw is how have you worked to overcome it so that you can continue to grow? And hopefully sharing your experience here will help our listeners learn a little bit from your experience.
Yeah, so, got a couple of them certainly. One is, and I haven't sorted this one out yet, and is, the again, I talk about seeing my own death, right? And so I have really struggled in places where, to me, there seems like an obvious need to do something different, and I can't convince, cajole, whatever, my colleagues or my superiors that we need to do something different. And I go back, and it's just the scenarios where I've been in. Well, I've had certainly some Super Bowl wins. I've been some instances where, it wasn't a super well, that company went bankrupt or they got delisted or something bad happened. And I've always tried to do my best to make an impact and found ways to bring some success for the company, irrespective of whether the financials rooted it. But still struggle with it to this day. It's like, but I have to go back and think about what can I have done in my communication style where I could have convinced the CEO that this was a disaster we needed to avoid. And some of it is that I'm like a pit bull on a pant leg. If I see it, I can't unforget it, and I can't let it go. And so I have to kind of work on my communication style. The other thing is, which is I coach against, but it's happened to me, is when you're in a scenario and you're dealing with numbers and numerics or things are going the wrong way. It's easy to fall into the trap of it's just a one off, right? The one piece of bad news is it's just a one off. It's not consistent. It's not part of the whole organization. And that happened to me, relatively recently, where it was a business where the financials weren't going the way we thought. And, I consider myself pretty, technically astute, and I was tearing apart and looking apart. And I was like, oh no, it's just these things over here. And it's a one-off. And Mikey, the dope, should have been remembering the things that I've said. It's just a lot of things, there's such thing as a runoff, because when you dismiss something as a one-off, okay, yeah, that might go away, but it's going to replace with another disaster right behind it. And by the way, the
Yeah.
same one off could be the good guy, right? Where you're carried. I've seen this before. That's kind of concentration of earnings where you're carried by some one gigantic client or whatever is holding the whole thing up. And your healthier business is not defined. You look at you got to get and look at the details. So I would say that, the two things that jump out to mind to me, obviously, are one is finding ways to convince, communicate, deliver negative messages to stakeholders, but having that message get through and take action, as opposed to either obfuscate, deny, or blame others. And then the other is avoiding the trap of the one-off, the assuming that something is gone awry is just, it's an aberration, and because your gut tells you it's an aberration. You're going to learn the hard way if you're not constantly checking yourself on that stuff.
Yeah, I really like that, because I feel that in our own business, especially the one-off stuff. You're like, "Oh, that's it was a problem this month. It's probably not gonna be a problem next month." And you realize that, "Oh, okay, that actually is a problem. We need to figure out how to solve that."
Yeah, and you could do the
And
root cause thing, the one-on-one stuff, root cause. Oh, it's just, but again, it's the root cause may tell you it's a one-off, but the reality is that a lot of business is just a series of one-offs, positive and negative. So you can't put your hand over the negatives and pretend the positives aren't one-offs as well. But yeah, I mean, getting understanding that the core of the business and the function, the production, the operations, and all that flowing from your customer base, that is hopefully it's spread across the board and it's not being adversely, positively, or negatively impacted by singular events. But don't discard the singular event as a singular event, because life sometimes is just a series of singular events.
yeah, absolutely. I love that, mentality and something that I need to, think about regularly as we're continuing to grow. So I want to shift gears off of our superpowers and fatal flaws and talk a little bit about your common enemy, right? Every superhero has what we call an arch nemesis, and it's a thing that you constantly have to fight against in your world, right?
Mm,
And so in your world of consulting, when you're taking these clients on and helping them, do their growth and stuff, it's a mindset or a flaw that you constantly have to fight against so you can actually get them the result that they came to you for in the first place. So in this world of, business consulting, I know you're specifically in the healthcare industry. What
mm.
is that common enemy that you have to fight against regularly now?
Yeah. So if you think about what we do at its essence and strip it all away, we are working with investors or a management team that has a problem that they can't fix on their own. And either they have come to that conclusion on their own with a touch of humility and, a sense of purpose, or they've been pushed to it. And so that's a hard thing, because we exist, frankly, and again, I'll put a fine edge on it. I don't like to use the word failure, but effectively, we're not being brought in when everything's great, right? We're being
Yeah.
brought in when something's broken and we need some help from the outside. And there's this, a stigma, especially for the the entrepreneur. This. And again, our clients are great folks, but that's a real tough pill for them to swallow, right? I had to bring you jabronis in here to kind of help me fix this, and again, it goes from either I can't fix this on my own, you guys can help me, this will be great, but there is that overarching, like, ugh, it's an admission of something's wrong, and
Yeah. I'm
and
realizing
so
that maybe I don't have everything it takes to do this and I need help. And that's a hard pill
yeah,
to swallow.
that's hard, right? And then then what do you do, right? It's back to my communication issue. I'm talking to a client, I'm looking at it, and I go, You're I mean, what do I tell you? You're going in the ground like a dart. If you don't change this stuff immediately, let us come land, sea, and air. We're on your team. We can help you." And a bunch of them will go, "Nah, I don't know. I think we'll be okay." And so that to me is that's the that more than anything else. That kind of the great thing about these entrepreneurs is their spirit and their drive and their thick skin. The bad thing is that, I guess like doctors, they make bad patients. Just and
Yeah.
we're not. We so tiptoe around. I mean, we don't. I don't speak like and I've said to them and I've had conversations with clients and I go, I don't have a vote. My W-2, I'm not. My mortgage isn't riding on it. I love you guys. I think you're great, but you're out of your mind. You got to make something different. Yeah. And I try to appeal with sense of humor, and it breaks my heart because I know I can help. Right? I love the people, I love the company, but it's just this kind of like,
Yeah.
no, you don't
Well,
understand. I go, no, I do understand. I can help you, and so there's a lot that goes into like it was really tiptoeing around. Right? We don't. Our marketing isn't built around. Here's your company all messed up, or you're in the soup, and you need somebody to come bail you out. No, we're here to help, and but yeah, that is the enemy. The enemy is complacency and stubbornness, and it's hard.
so
It's
so
hard.
if that complacency and stubbornness is what you're constantly have to fight against, the flip side of that is, of course, what you're fighting for, your driving force, right? Your mission, so to speak. Just like
Yep.
Spider-Man fights to save New York or Batman fights to save Gotham or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information. What is it that you fight for in your business?
Yeah. No. We exist. Obviously, we're kind of pro management friendly. We're not looking to put the made by Sunstone stamp on all the stuff we do. We fundamentally exist to make companies better. I mean, and then that's just building on the careers we've all had where we have those stories, like took a company was, spewing oil about to get delisted, $20 million turnaround, that sort of thing. Love that stuff all day long. And then obviously collaborating with management and then creating the tools and the things that our collective experience that makes them just a great company going forward. And some of it's, it's turnarounds and it's building things and it's fixing things. And but above all else, it's making an impact on the enterprise value, either saving it from themselves and putting them on the path to, some magic, or it's, putting some things in place that just allow it to take it up a notch or two. So, we tell folks that number one is, we're hands on. So it's not like you talk to me and I cajole you into getting a deal with Sunstone and then we pass to grad students. Our operating partners are all senior executives with dirt on their fingernails and real life experiences in a wide range of scenarios to help our clients with their business. Second, our skill sets are all complementary. So even simple things like a go to market strategy, my to your point, my lead partner, I jokingly say he's the rain man. He's 5 o'clock to Wapner. He organizes his sock drawer. He's the all world logistics, guy. And then we have a couple of marketing geniuses and some other folks that are, have great financial backgrounds. So even something as simple as a go to market strategy, we can bring talent in, even if they're doing light touches on it. And the last thing is our economic model is built around yes, if it's the no because we're not chasing big projects with binders. We want first and foremost to make a discernible impact on the company. And that means we want to reduce our SG&A expend. And so can we do some clever things with how we're apportioning talent, leveraging their skill sets versus ours, or doing things on success fees. So it's not sunk cost, it's tied to a success. So anyway, but fundamentally, you know, yeah, we want to be heroes. We want to save the day, but frankly, there's a humility to that. We want our clients to be heroes, and we'll be
Yeah.
happy to be, Alfred the butler, right? We're just quietly in the back, just kind of
Just
orchestrating things.
help them make it, what
Yep,
they call it the guy in the chair in comic books, right?
the guy in the chair, right?
Guy
That's
in
yeah.
the chair.
We don't need to be the hero. We want our client to be the hero and kind of look back and go, well, thanks, guys.
Well, speaking of being the guy in the chair, the next thing I always like to talk about is your tool belt, right? The practical portion of our show, every superhero has a tool belt, right? With their awesome gadgets like their batarangs or their web slingers, their laser eyes, or, if you're Alfred, that big giant computer screen that Batman's got. And I'll talk about the top one or two tools you couldn't live without to do what you do today. Could be anything from your notepad to your calendar to something you use your marketing tools for product delivery, something you think is essential to getting your job done as founder of this kind of company.
Wow. So I would say the first thing that, the things in my tool belt is my affinity, talent, comfort with technology. I'm
Yeah.
not a coder, but so this year I embarked on the world of email campaigns. I never had to do organic lead generation. It just wasn't what I had to do. I mean, I built sales organizations. We either bought leads or whatever, but I knew how to ingest them. So I knew all that stuff. I never was on the other side of that, but I have, an intellectual curiosity and an affinity and a skill set, or being able to. And again, I'm effectively like the CEO of the firm. I don't have folks to toss it to, so I had to kind of build this muscle memory to kind of build on our marketing program, which is buying domains, setting up code, figuring out software, coding the software, analytics, connecting into the CRM, all kind of dirt on the fingernail stuff. So I would say first and foremost, my comfort level with technology, everywhere from Access to Excel. I mean, I can go from 30,000 feet to dirt on the fingernails like that. I don't have to wait for somebody to
Yeah.
get me out of a situation and get right to it. And then the second thing I would say is my quant analytical mindset, which is, everything can be measured, everything can be assessed. Build the instrumentation panel, build a cockpit, and then measure to your targets. And everything that I've ever gone, even if I'm looking at just a business strategy, there's a cockpit that I'm thinking about. If it's a financial thing, where we're finding the profitability, there's a cockpit, there's analytics I think about. So I would say those are the two main superpowers that I have, or in my tool belt,
Yeah.
that allows me to be pretty functional.
I love the thought about being comfortable with technology because you realize today that's such a thing that sets you apart because there's so much technology and you have so much power you can use with it if only you're just not afraid to push the buttons and see what happens. And
Yeah,
I think
and what do you
it's one
do?
of
I
those.
mean, what do you do if
Yeah.
you're in the middle of something? Again, you're, running your own firm, and I mean, I don't have anybody to toss the ball to. I can't say, "Hey, go buy 11 domains for me, get them set up, get them all, do the thing, warm them up, buy the emailing software, program the journeys. Let's set up those things, and let's make sure that, we don't get unsubscribed or bounces, and analyze." I mean, so
Yeah.
I'm building that muscle memory for myself. But by the way, that same muscle memory I can now build and pass on and use to help my clients as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of heroic tools, I want to take a few minutes to tell you about a tool we built that powers the Hero Show and is now this show's primary sponsor. Hey there, fellow podcaster. Having a weekly audio and video show on all the major online networks that builds your brand, creates fame, and drives sales for your business doesn't have to be hard. I know it feels that way because you've tried managing your show internally and realize how resource intensive it can be. You felt the pain of pouring 8 to 10 hours of work into just getting 1 hour of content published and promoted all over the place. You see the drain on your resources, but you do it anyways because you know how powerful it is. Heck, you've probably even tried some of those automated solutions and ended up with stuff that makes your brand look cheesy and cheap. That's not helping grow your business. Don't give up though. The struggle ends now. Introducing Push Button Podcasts, a done-for-you service that will help you get your show out every single week without you lifting a finger after you've pushed that stop record button. We handle everything else: uploading, editing, transcribing, writing, research, graphics, publication, and promotion, all done by real humans who know, understand, and care about your brand almost as much as you do. Empowered by our own proprietary technology, our team will let you get back to doing what you love while we handle the rest. Check us out at pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero for 10% off the lifetime of your service with us, and see the power of having an audio and video podcast growing and driving micro celebrity status and business in your niche without you having to lift more than a finger to push that stop record button. Again, that's pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero. See you there. And now, back to the Hero Show.
So I love all of that. I want to talk a little bit about your guiding principles, right?
Yep.
And as we get near the end of the interview here, one of the things that makes heroes heroic is that they live by a code. For
Mhm.
instance, Batman never kills his enemies. He only ever brings them to Arkham Asylum. So as we wrap up, I want to talk about the top one or two principles that you live your life by. Maybe something you wish you had known when you first started out on your own hero's journey.
Yeah, so I would start off with that when I think about, especially in the role of leader. I have a kind of a, and I jokingly say it's, I make use of my history major, but when I started off as a leader, it just intuitively I knew I needed to sit down and meet with everybody. I used to call it Mikey Meet, so I got a Mikey Meet session, and so sit down and do one-on-ones with everybody and just get to know them. And then over time, the organization got bigger and bigger, and I couldn't really do that, and so I started putting things in writing. And I started with, kind of a marker that I would put down for myself. And it was the same thing with colleagues, certainly. And I start off by saying, built around trust. And I will instantly trust the person, my subordinate or my colleague, instantly trust. They don't have to earn that from me. I will give that to them right out of the gate. Theirs to lose. But on my side, my marker is I have to earn their trust. And I'm going to earn their trust, not by being an indulgent parent and giving people whatever they want. I'm going to earn their trust through reliability, fairness, open communication. So, I have three things I talk about. Is one is divine right of kings. And I don't believe in the divine right of kings. So the fact that I'm in charge or quote unquote a superior does not make me a superior. I'm not going to be the alpha wolf by gnashing my teeth. I'm going to earn that. That
Yeah.
right to govern comes from the right of the governed, and you that's not something you can take. That's something you have to earn, and has to be a mindset that, like the Lord of the Flies, you drop me there. I'm going to be in charge because I deserve to be in charge, not because I think it, but because you think it. The second thing was open covenants, openly arrived at, and full and fair communication. I build an environment where people can say anything they want to me. And I tell them, please do not rehearse your speech. I am wonderfully flawed, right? I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And I'm okay with being told I'm flawed. So don't think about how you need to tell me something. Don't politic for me. Just let me have it both ways. You want to call me names? Call me names. My only thing is that don't shoot at me from behind rocks. Let me have a chance to defend myself first. And because either I've undercommunicated something and we got to fix that, or I'm doing something wrong and we need to correct that. And the third thing is we may agree to disagree. And my only little sense of humor there is that we each reserve the right to say I told you so. And sometimes I'll pull rank and sometimes I won't. But certainly having that level of high amounts of task pressure, not relationship pressure, is key. But then the last thing is damn the torpedoes full speed ahead, which is, as an organization, I have a bias towards action. So those operating principles, and I said the marker I put down for everybody is I want them to walk away from their relationship with me, however it ends, and that they say he's the best leader I ever had. And again, I can't take that; I have to earn that, and I'm not successful all the time. But I started the habit of putting that stuff in writing and sharing it with folks. And as I left various positions, people would come out and say, "I kept your letter, and you were true to your word." So that honor, integrity, decency, ethics, not only in terms of doing the right thing, but communicating, that above all. And the flip side of that is if you don't have integrity, if you're not being honest with me, that's a non-starter. That's non-negotiable. That's where we part company quickly.
Yeah.
But I would say that, that's it. So it's a sense of humility about the consent of the governed and earning your stripes as a leader. But it is
Yeah.
also driven by fundamental, rigorous approach to honor and decency.
Yeah, I love that. It's very mirrors a lot of my principles for how we run our company too. One of the things I talk about all the time is that trust is something that's given, not earned,
Mhm.
and then it's either kept or lost,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And so as a leader, it's something that you have to model for people because a lot of people will hold trust and then wait for you to earn it. And then like that, it just doesn't work as well that way. It's not a good way to operate an operating relationship. So as a leader, you have to model that and be like, you have my trust to keep or lose. Um,
There's an adage which is a variation on a theme and applies to this. Is an old joke that says nothing kills a bad product better than good marketing. It's the same thing with leadership, right? And trust. If you're not the embodiment of what you say you are, that cynicism creeps in, and you're dead. So you've got to be, when you put the words out, you can't have the cognitive dissonance and then do something else. Well, except I didn't mean it in this case. No, you mean it, and you hold to it all the time, and you build consistency. And
yeah.
again, Not everybody's gonna
And
warm
when
to
you F
that.
up, you
Yeah,
apologize about it, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, it's and I've said, "Look, I hear what you're saying, but I'm taking the bat out of your hands, and, it's not a democracy. I mean, we can have fun and we can, yell and holler and have good, serious debates about stuff, and more often than not, you're gonna have the authority you need to execute your job, but if I look and see something that's just fatal flaw, I gotta take the bat out of your hands, and then you know what? If I'm wrong, you could say you told me so." And so, I don't know, that kind of honesty, task pressure, integrity, that I don't ever like being part of organizations when I've been there where it's the disingenuousness to the conversation. You can tell you're being, lied to. It's a cancer. I can't stand it. And I wouldn't, tolerate that in anybody that worked for me. And I certainly don't tolerate it myself.
yeah, absolutely. And it's one of my favorite questions on these interviews is just asking that because it's still to this day, over 300 interviews, surprises me how consistently entrepreneurs answer with some variation of integrity as being their core value. And you realize that, like, hey, it's one of the things that makes heroes heroic, that makes entrepreneurs the ones who are making the world a better place, is because of that stringent adherence to. So I think that is a great place to wrap our interview, but I do
Awesome.
finish every interview with a simple challenge. I call it the Heroes Challenge,
Oh,
and it's simple. Heroes Challenge is to help us find and get access to stories that we might not otherwise find on our own. So
okay.
the question is this: do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine, and why do you think they should come share their story with us here on the Hero Show? First person that comes to mind for you.
Yeah. So I would say it wasn't necessarily a happy ending for this individual, but yeah, he was a boss of mine, John, and John was a successful corporate executive going up the corporate ladder, doing great things, making good money. And one day woke up, kind of like I decided, said, no, no, I want to do something more, and cashed everything in and bought a small, tiny insurance company, became CEO, went through some of the worst stuff you ever go through in your life. And, at the end, it didn't turn out the way we wanted, I think ultimately. But I mean, I remember when he was talking to me about going to work for him, and I thought, there's no chance I want to go work for this silly little company. But then I met him, and I was so inspired by his journey and his honesty and his integrity and his humaneness. And even though this company didn't take off the way it should, we went to hell and back. And I was, kind of his aide de camp, and I just was so impressed by his self awareness, his introspection, drive, his kindness, and so we stayed in touch over the years. And actually, he came to work for me at one point, but not the
Yeah,
definition of great,
story
successful entrepreneurial, but just an all world human
stories to
being.
tell.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well,
all
we'll
world
see
human being.
if we can reach out and get an introduction. Sometimes they come on the show, sometimes they don't, but they always end up
Sure.
being cool interviews.
Yeah,
So our send off here is, in comic books, there's always the crowd of people at the end who are cheering and clapping for the acts of heroism, right? So analogous to that is, where can people find you if they want your help in the future? Where can they light up the bat signal, so to speak, and say, "Hey, Mike, I'd love to get your assistance with our company." But I think more importantly than where is, who are the right types of people to reach out and actually light up the
sure.
bat signal and ask for your help?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, they can come to me at Sunstone Management Advisors.com/hero. So, got a landing page for, extolling your virtues as well. So it's all one word, Sunstone Management Advisors.com/hero. I'm happy to talk to anybody that's trying to sort something out, and you can make an appointment with me, and I'm happy to spend some time with folks on the phone. So, I mean, generally, our bread and butter is kind of in the insurance and healthcare space. But if somebody is dealing with some other issues, where I might be able to provide some pearls of wisdom, I'm happy to do that all day long. So,
Awesome.
one other joke that I saw, was I was thinking about it, is it was a comedian was talking about Sully Sullenberger, the hero that landed the plane on the Hudson
Oh
River,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the first requirement of being a hero is you have to admit you're not a hero. So it's like, I'm not a hero, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I was thinking about that when I was coming on your show. I thought that was a little joke tidbit there that the comedian was saying, that Sully Sullenberger said, "No, I'm not a hero," which means, okay, that's the first thing you have to say if you're a hero. So,
Of course not.
yeah,
Yep, I love that, and, thank you so much for coming on today, Mike,
a
and
pleasure.
sharing your story and just getting a chance to see through, your lens of what it looks like to grow companies at the level that you've grown them. It's a very cool way to sort of see your principles and some of the phraseology that you use to, like, help people, progress. So anyways, it's fascinating to hear your story today. Do you have any final words of wisdom for my audience before we hit the stop record button?
No, I mean, love the journey, stay on the journey. Problems that arise are just steps along the way and opportunities to overcome, and stay positive because, don't get down. And if you want some help staying positive, and, we're here to do our part.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Hero Show, where we work to shift the cultural narrative around entrepreneurship and celebrate the heropreneurs who make our world a better place. Don't forget to visit our website at theheroshow.tv, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. If you found value in our show, we'd truly appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or better yet, share it with a friend to help us spread the message of entrepreneurship as a force for good. Curious to learn more about the stories and insights of these incredible heropreneurs? Check out our in-depth interviews and resources on our website. Together, let's support and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs as they embark on their own heroic journeys. Join us again next week for another episode of The Hero Show, where we'll continue to explore the world of heropreneurs, their superpowers, and the positive impact they bring to our lives. Until then, stay heroic.